Hello, my name is Krisna and I am here with my friend DaQuan. We've been talking about reparations and policy making and the permanent forum of people of Afro descent. And my friend is a teacher, so we'd like to know, why do you think it's important to involve your students in policy making? How can they contribute to that?
That's a great question. So for me, I teach middle school, so that is about age 11 to 13 or 14, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade in the U.S. And I think it's very important to teach youth about public policy, international relations, diplomacy, all of the above, because politics, there's an unbroken line between politics on a national level, a local level, and an international level. And often, history is kind of ignored sometimes by either policymakers, or they don't acknowledge all of the causes that members of civil society, whether it's an indigenous population, whether it's another minority group, whether it's women, whether it's ethnic minority group, all of these policymakers don't always acknowledge the roles that different people and different stakeholders play. So I think that it's very important that we engage youth very early, because youth may not necessarily get that information in college. If they go to college, they may not get that information if they do not go to college, but they are still a stakeholder. So just using the example of voting, for an example, I think in America we have the rule of you have to be 18 years old to vote. If that's the case, that is in fact the law. However, we should educate the youth about voting well before they're 18, so they don't have to be put on the spot or have a rush lesson of history when they're 18. They should be well versed on history and learning about history when they're 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So by the time they're 18, they will be an informed stakeholder. And the last thing that I would say is just using the U.S., because again, I'm an American citizen. So what I often tell my students when I'm teaching, a lot of people now, President Trump is the bad guy, for better or worse. People, they favor him or they don't favor him. I'm in the middle. I'm not for or against him, because I look at Trump as part of all American politics. So I could look at a Democratic president and find the same things that Trump is doing, or I could look at a Republican president and find the same things that he's doing. But I use that as an example. If we want to grow up in a world where the billionaires or the people who have more than the many actually help people, then that starts in public school. That starts early on in school, because instead of separating people based on how much money they have, their ability to speak English, where their parents work, their jobs, or what part of the country they live in, if you separate people like that early, then by the time they get older, then they're also going to be separated. So I think that school-age children or school-age youth, that's the perfect group, at least for me to speak to, because I think that adults don't listen. Adults, once we get a certain age, we think that we know everything. But fortunately, the youth, they are the now and they are the future, so they have an open mind and they usually continuously listen.
Thank you very much. And as you know, teachers and educators are very close to children and teens, and they guide them through the process, engagement to be part of the society since they are young. So thank you very much for your time.
No problem.